But first tonight, they thought they were living the high life. In fact, they were being groomed and abused in the most terrible way.
Today, 5 vulnerable victims who were targeted by a gang of 7 men in Rotherham got justice in the first trial to be led by the National Crime Agency. One girl had told the court she had sex with at least 100 Asian men by the time she was 16.
Operation Stovewood was set up after the J report revealed that more than 1,400 children had been exploited over several years. Today's trial is just one of 22 NCA investigations taking place at the moment.
Well, Chris Kiddie is live in Rotherham for us this evening. Chris, what more can you tell us?
Well, this trial ended at Sheffield Crown Court just down the road, as you say, with the conviction of these 7 men, 6 of whom we can identify tonight, found guilty of rape and sexual assault. The court heard how the 5 girls, all in their 30s now, this is how long ago these offences took place. They were lured by the excitement of friendship with older Asian youths, but they were then sexually assaulted and passed between the men. They were, say the prosecution, groomed and exploited. Well, one of the girls says she had sex with at least 100 Asian men by the time she was 16, and another described how she was gang raped in a forest and threatened with being abandoned there. Well, this is what the man in charge of the inquiry had to say outside court this afternoon.
We're absolutely delighted for the victims in this case. The girls were children at the time. They were plied with alcohol, with drugs. They were groomed into believing it was normal behaviour to give sexual favours to these men who really were predators and preyed upon their vulnerability at the time. So we're really delighted on behalf of the victims.
Well, Chris, just remind us of the background to the case.
Well, it's the first major prosecution arising from Operation Stovewood, the National Crime Agency's inquiry into historic child sexual exploitation here in Rotherham between 1997 and 2013. That identified more than 1,500 victims. And the NCA has a staff of 250 working on this inquiry and an annual budget of approaching £15 million. The trial, which ended today, is just one of 22 separate ongoing investigations. And nearly 300 survivors of exploitation here, all female, are now actively engaging, we're told, with the police here in Rotherham.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. Those men will be sentenced next month.
So we start tonight in Rotherham. 7 men of Pakistani heritage have been convicted of the sexual exploitation of 5 girls in the town between 1998 and 2005. One of the victims told the trial she'd had sex with at least 100 men by the time she was 16.
This is the biggest number of convictions so far for Operation Stovewood, the ongoing investigation into allegations of child sexual abuse in the town. Tom Ingle can tell us more. Tom.
Good evening, Luxmi. This is a big day for Rotherham and a big day for Operation Stovewood. As you say, the single biggest number of convictions on a single trial, 7, taking the total number of men convicted in the town for sexual abuse against children to 14. Stovewood is a vast operation. It follows Clover, which was an operation run by South Yorkshire Police, which saw a few convictions, but Stovewood is in a different league. There are currently 22 separate investigations running at the same time, and they're dealing with around 300 young people who may have been the victim of abuse during 1997 to 2013. There could be potentially as many as 1,500 victims in the town, as discovered by the Professor Alexis J report back in 2014. Now, this trial today convicted 7 men. It is, as always, distressing to listen to the details. I should warn you about that. And it follows a familiar pattern. Young people befriended and then abused. A wretchedly familiar story. A new parade of names. Ikhlas Yousaf, Nabil Khurshid, Asif Ali, Mohammed Akhtar, Salah al-Hakam, Tanwir Ali, and a 7th man who we are not legally allowed to identify. Between them, they sexually abused 5 girls. They would meet them in town, offering them friendship, drink and drugs. The attention turned sexual, turned demanding, turned threatening.
I don't think they gave a thought for their victims, and I think that they have not shown any remorse since that time up to now, and that's probably exemplified by the fact that they've all pleaded not guilty to their actions, and they've made the victims, who have shown immense courage to come forward and to tell their story, they've made them go through the the ordeal of repeating that in front of a jury.
One of the women in this trial told the jury how she was raped in a forest and threatened with being abandoned there. Others described being passed around amongst the men who all knew each other. The abuse in this case took place between 1998 and 2005. At their incident room in Sheffield, officers from the National Crime Agency are working on another 22 investigations. Seeking to prove justice is now being delivered in Rotherham. The council leader has urged other people who want to report abuse to come forward.
The whole community in Rotherham, we want, of course, to see people who were let down in the past get the support that they need and be able to access justice. That's what this whole process is all about. But we'll not be able to move on from that if people still feel like there are stories untold, justice undone, people who haven't had their day in court. So I'd urge people to continue to come forward, and we have the services in place to support them.
The jury were told these girls believed sex was the price of friendship. Decades later, they still bear the emotional effects of what their abusers did to them. Today's convictions was the result of a 2-month trial. The jury spent around 6 hours on their deliberations, and there was absolute silence in court as the jury foreman stood and read aloud the verdicts over a period of 10 minutes. The men who'd been on bail were formally remanded today, and they will be sentenced after prosecution reports on the 16th of November. But there are more Stovewood trials to come, and they are gathering pace as Rotherham seeks to move forward.